Well, we're back with the Millennium Master, and a little wiser for the effort. We now understand the airframe. We know how it performs.
Yes,
at least the miniature version of it.
Yes.
We don't know how the big one flies.
Still waiting for the call from Italy. It hasn't happened.
We don't have any buddies with the Millennium Master that want us to take the stakes, unfortunately. Let's go ahead and jump into the 5x5 review. Thayer, you did the review on this particular model.
I did.
Now, the build is advertised, as we had mentioned in the previous video. I give it a 4.5 out of 5. Everything is pretty well straightforward. With the directions that seem to cover all grounds. The glue that we used, it was used inside the on the Millennium. It was also recommended by the manufacturer. Was that regular thin CA, wicks in there pretty well. No major deviations at all, so I'd say it was a solid, good set of instructions and should get you up and going pretty easy. Finish. So you're moving on finish. You give it a 4 out of 5 for the finish. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we did. It's a beautiful looking airplane. It's really nicely finished. Nice, sort of realistic. It's got some panel lines and stuff going on. The only thing we found is that red paint is a little bit fragile on the wings where you bump it into the doors and
it seems to be it's the gloss and not the flat. The flat's a little bit tougher than the gloss.
Yeah, yeah. So you want to just watch like the leading edge of the wing at the field and things like that. We found a red Sharpie. Does not affect the foam at all, and you can just touch it up pretty nicely and quickly with that.
So buy the kit and pick up a Sharpie.
Yeah.
Our recommendation. Power, you give it a 5 out of 5.
I did give it a 5 out of 5. Once we got this thing in the air, it scoots, which you'd expect. It's a 170-mile-an-hour touring machine.
Right.
It goes. It cruises very nicely. We're running a bit over 145 watts per pound on this, so you can climb pretty much any angle you want for as long as you want.
I know when you did your rollout and pegged the throttle, it was like a little rocket.
Oh,
it just shot straight forward and then
yeah.
pop, and just jumped right off the ground.
It just leaped off the ground. It was all I could do to hold back for a second or two before I rolled it that first time.
Ground handling, you gave it a 4.5 out of 5, and of course ground handling for any plane is not just coming in the ground effect, but also steering on the ground with the savvy steerable nose wheel.
The ground handling is very effective.
Yeah.
That nose wheel works really well. The only issue really for me, and it's not even an issue, it's a small airplane. It's lightweight. It's 27.5 ounces. It bounces around a little on the runway.
Yep.
Unless you've got a perfect new runway at your club field, it'll bounce and skip.
And those are kind of few and far between for the most part.
It's fine.
We didn't actually fly this off of grass, though, did we?
No, we flew off the paved runway. Yeah.
So grass might calm that down just a wee tad bit, I'd imagine.
Depending again on the condition of your grass.
On the grass,
if it's a mowed farmer's field, it'll bounce around.
If it's as dry in your neighborhood as it's been in our neighborhood this season, it's going to be like a plowed field. It's really rough in the yard, but yeah, the wheels are big enough though, and the landing gear skirts are far enough off to where you should be able to roll on some decent grass.
Yeah, and in terms of, we didn't fly it off grass, but we did taxi through some grass a bit, and we found, and this is just the grass on the side of the runway, so it's not maintained to runway conditions, but it looked like it was accelerating there fast enough to get up and go too.
With all that power, it probably yanked itself out of.
I don't think you'd have any trouble on a typical grass field.
What did it feel like on the ground handling? What did it feel like when you came into ground effect and you set it down?
Well, like any airplane, it'll kind of sit and float there a little bit. And if you've got a stabilized approach, if you're not dancing around with it, you bring it in, you hold that nose off a little bit. It's a very graceful.
It looked like it stuck really well. When you came down, there wasn't a whole lot of bounce and jiggling around. It just popped.
The full-scale airplane has a trailing link suspension on it, and that's simulated by the landing gear wires on this bending back a little bit. And there's a fair amount of weight on the nose wheel. I'm going to guess right now about 4 or 5 ounces.
So when it sits down,
it stays there.
Yeah, that's good. That's always handy. So we'll move on to durability. Gave it a 4.5 out of 5 on durability.
It's the molded aerocell foam, which we're very familiar with other Flyzone products. The only thing is that little bit about the paint.
Yeah, but, and you're gonna pull that paint off pretty quick when you pull it in and out of the car.
Well, if you're careful with it, just.
Yeah.
It's not a deal breaker. It just.
I'm speaking from my perspective. Okay. We got to with a caveat. That's from my perspective. I'm a bit of a bumble fingers when it comes to throwing things in and out of the car. And we deal with it so much too. We're always taking review planes out, taking them in, taking them out. We have usually our review planes get transported 3, 4, maybe 5 times before they get back on the bench. Yeah. So we have a pretty good feel for durability in terms of paint and the oval airframe. But you're right. Aircell's extremely durable, EPO foam, and it's small. It's not too bad. And the one wing bolt, pop it off and you're free. There is enough slack in the aileron wires to be able to pull it down, pivot you know, 90 degrees and kind of lay it beside it. So that would help.
Ooh, it's time to go fly.
Yeah. Here, the beeping in the background says the battery's just charged up. Now our next section is pilot experience. We'll go ahead and move on to probably the most critical category out of all of them, which is flight as advertised. You gave it a 5 out of 5, which is a very strong statement.
I was extremely satisfied with the performance of this airplane. Reading up a little bit on the full-scale airplane, we know it's not designed to be fully aerobatic. It's more of, as a high-speed traveling machine, full scale, you'd probably equate that to more of like a pattern type airplane. You point it somewhere, it goes. There was maybe a slight hint of a little bit of tail wag as you rolled aggressively.
I noticed when you were banking, you'd see a little bit of a wiggle, but not like a out-of-control wiggle.
No, and it damped out immediately.
Gives a characteristic.
It goes exactly where you point it. It flies very well. It is aerobatic in the sport aerobatic sense. It's not a 3D airplane by any stretch, but it's very, very capable. We actually got the privilege of flying this airplane with Dan Landis, and after I put it through its paces, he really put it through its paces.
Yeah.
He was doing rolling circles and rolling loops.
So to clarify, the first footage was you, the second was Dan?
I think it was reversed, actually.
You were having a really good day?
Yeah, he showed us what it's capable of, and it's capable of a lot more than I'm yet.
Yeah, thanks to Dan. He's actually a pro pilot for, he flies with the Futaba moniker, but it's for Habico. He flies the equipment for Habico, so you see those guys get a hold of an aircraft, and to just show their flying experience with, or the flight footage from one of their flights is unfair to the model from a hobbyist perspective, and this is a position we've always taken. We don't have those capabilities. The guy's phenomenal on this thing.
He's absolutely, and he had flown it before. Yeah. When I took off smoothly like glass, and first time ever. He pulled straight off the ground. He pulled off the ground nice and smooth. So that's a testament. See, now that's a more hobbyist experience. Instead of Dan, you could strap 4 or 5 lead weights to the tail, and he'd still find some way to fly the thing. Camera on every wingtip, and he wouldn't notice.
Moving on to flight time, 4.5 out of 5. And you did some calculations on the flight time.
Yeah, we did some rough calculations. We're burning about 23.5 amps on this, so you know, realistically, if you run close to flat out, you'll get about a 6-minute flight. Yeah. But at 145, 150 watts per pound, there's no reason to do that.
You're going to be running half, 3/4 throttle, maybe. Yeah.
I would set my timer on the transmitter of this airplane for 10 minutes and be confident that
you got enough to bring it back down.
Enough to bring it back. Our test flying, we were running over that.
Yep.
So I don't think that would be an issue at all.
Good. Field size, you've got park field. Now this falls within the classifications dictated by the AMA, 60 mile an hour, 48-inch wingspan, as a park flyer, also below weight as well.
Right.
It qualifies as a park flyer, but you said field as well. Would you caution? And I watched it fly. We were at a field when we flew it.
Yeah, we flew from a club field.
It definitely chewed up the air at the club field very quickly.
It eats up the airspace, and if you stay on the power, it's moving fast. Yeah. So my personal recommendation is, if you don't have a lot of throttle restraint, go to a club field. It slows down pretty well, though. You can fly around all day long at half stick. That's not an issue. But you do want a fairly open space.
Yeah. And like, as we look at the responsibility of not being the bad model or the bad hobbyist, a plane like this could get you in trouble real quick at a park. If you've got any kind of spectators, you got cars or anything like that, you're going to do you have enough speed, enough power to not only intimidate from just a visual perspective and the aural perspective, but also you could do a lot of damage coming down in a car at 70 miles an hour.
Oh, you'd break a windshield or cave in a door, absolutely.
Portability, we give it a 5 out of 5 for portability.
Yeah, it's a relatively compact package. Like we said, 41-inch wingspan, it's about 39 inches long. You can easily put that in the back seat of any sedan. And if you need to go somewhere with a family, one wing bolt, pivot that wing, it'll go in the trunk or up on the hat shelf or wherever you need it to be in the car. Excellent.
Skill level, finally, we say it's intermediate. What's your, I say it was intermediate. Yeah, 4-channel plane. Always says intermediate, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would call it a pretty high performance small airplane. I'm a little hesitant to say park flyer right there. I almost did, but it's a little bit more capable than I'm personally comfortable with a park flyer. It's a little bit fast. You don't want to be hesitating or wondering if you can fly in that space. Right. And usually, someone with a little bit more experience they're going to be happier with this airplane.
Now, a beginner or someone that's new, getting their hands on this, say they got a buddy box or somebody helping them out, Slight dihedral to the main wing. It's a low wing, so we've got some characteristics that peel in there. Setting the low rates, what would that initial flight experience be for that beginner? Are they going to feel it pretty comfortable to a low wing trainer? Comparable, or are they, other than the speed and the agility of it, is it in that class, would you say, or where would you kind of put this flight experience from a skill level perspective?
Right. It's not all hard to fly. Back when I was learning to fly, pattern was a pretty big thing, and while I never flew pattern, a lot of people promoted pattern airplanes as good aileron trainers once you had the basics, because they would go where you pointed them.
Right, right.
And this is kind of in that same class. It's a high performance airplane, but it doesn't have bad habits. It goes where you point it. So you just have to be thinking ahead of it enough to know that you're going to turn when you want to turn, and not react to the airplane and not say, oh, I'm getting too close to the highway, I better turn now.
So we go back into that orientation issue of a beginner versus an intermediate. They've got their orientation down and they're flying the plane as opposed to letting it fly
you
fly
want
them.
to be confident. You want to be confident on the sticks and be thinking ahead of the airplane. And I'd say if a beginner can't resist this airplane, and it is a good-looking airplane, buddy box it with one of the experienced guys you know at the club, or somebody else who has been flying before, and then hang it up for a little while and admire it while you work your way up to it. You know, it would be a good, I would say probably a good third airplane.
That's good advice, actually. I wish I'd have taken that early on. Hung it up and worked my way back up to it.
Yeah.
If you don't, you won't be hanging it up, you'll be scooping it up, and you'll be wishing
it's too pretty to do that too.
Well, that wraps up our review of the Millennium Master from Flyzone. You can see the full review at our website at tobefly.com. For mobile users, you can go to rcflightsource.com, download the mobile app, and take all our content on the go, as well as some unique features like our field locator and our parts locator. I'm Kurt.
And I'm Thayer. Thanks for watching.
Buddy.